When the unknown confront us, we wonder, and our inquisitiveness makes us probe and attain full and fuller understanding of the unknown. So we do not stop. We keep on investigating. We keep on trying to find an answer to the question, find an answer to the problem, and therefore we do some uh, critical investigation, forensic investigation. We do some laboratory investigation. We do some historical search, etc. And therefore, whatever discovery we make, then kaya sinabi niya dito, it's a movement from the known to the unknown because we do not know whether we will succeed. We do not know whether we will get an answer to all the questions we have in mind. Whether we will be able to realize all the objectives of the research that we have set. And it is because of our inquisitiveness, no, that we do further investigation, that we do experiments and do some analysis. And it says here that inquisitiveness is the mother of all knowledge, no? Yung pagiging ano natin, no, yung inquisitive, ibig sabihin yung marami nating katanungan at gusto nating alamin ang mga bagay-bagay. So, yun yung dahilan, no? Kung bakit tayo gumagawa ng research. Because there are questions in our mind that we would like to find an answer and to provide solution to all these questions, and therefore we make use of the scientific method because that's the best process to be used because we are guided by science, and we make use of this as a tool for explaining the occurrence or the presence or the reasons of being, no? And research is an academic activity, sabi dito, no? And we make use of some technical sense. Therefore, we make use of some techniques in order to uh, answer all the questions, all the problems that we wish to answer, no? And maganda sa engineering kasi yun yung ano natin, no, naging training natin. We're trained to first read the question, and we were trained to identify the given in the problem. Then after identifying the given, what is required? Di ba ganun ang ginagawa natin kapag nagsosolve tayo dati ng mga problems, no? We first read the question, identify the given, and determine the required. And according to Clifford Woody, research comprises defining and redefining problems, formulating hypotheses or suggested solutions through data collection and organization and evaluation of data. And from the data we collect or we have collected, we always do some conclusions. So we make some deductions, no? We make some conclusions out of the data that we gathered. So we must learn how to organize the data. We must learn how to analyze the data, and we must learn how to interpret the data. If we cannot do that, if we cannot write a good discussion of results, then sayang yung ating pinaghirapan. Kahit pa na napakarami mong ginawa, kung hindi mo naman alam i-organize ang mga data na to. That's the problem of some students, that they have done a lot of experiments, but they do not know how to organize their data. They do not know how to present it in table format, in graphical format, in tabular or whatever. in the form of figure. So if you do not know how to do that, then that's a big problem, especially if you do not know how to explain and if you do not know how to analyze and make some correlations. So it's important that we need to carefully make and define the problem, because knowing the research problem fully is a very good strategy in analyzing, in doing the investigation, because from the problem we can write our hypothesis. And when we say hypothesis, it is a what? Ano ba yon? Ano ba ang hypothesis? Ano na nga ba ang hypothesis? Anyone? It is
Yes, sir.
it is a guess, but ano ba yon? May basis ba? Wala.
Proven.
So, meron kang basis, no? And that needs to be proven. And that can only be proven through statistical analysis. Para masabi mo kung tama ba yung hypothesis mo, kasi depende, no? It depends on how you state it, whether you state it in the negative or in the affirmative, or we have the null hypothesis where we state the hypothesis in this way: there is no significant difference, for example. That is the null hypothesis. But if you have the alternative hypothesis, then you state it this way: that there is a significant difference. There's significant difference between A and B. That's alternative hypothesis. There is no significant difference between samples A and B. And that is the null hypothesis. And therefore, from the result, from the mean, and from the probabilistic approach used in analyzing the variances in the data, then we can say that we have to accept the hypothesis, because the p-value, assuming that we have a 5% confidence set for the statistical analysis, kasi meron tayong tinatawag na 0.10 or 10% allowance for some errors. So 90% ka na sure, parang gano'n, na ano siya, okay, no? So kung maalala niyo yung no, yung statistics niyo na at 5% confidence, 5%, ibig sabihin napakahigpit nito, 95% yung no, tama, pero meron kang allowance na pwedeng magkamali at 5%. So that is the 5% confidence. And from there we can conclude if the value we obtain for the probability is 0.00 or less than 0.05, then it means to say that it is within the acceptable region. Pwede mong i-accept. Therefore, we have to reject or we have to accept the hypothesis. Anyway, mapag-aaralan natin yan later on when we go to the use of statistical tools for analyzing the data. And we make some conclusions, and whether it conforms with the hypothesis or not, then we have to take note of that. And then, according to Schlesinger and Stephenson from the Encyclopedia of Social Sciences, they said that research is the manipulation of things, concepts or symbols for the purpose of generalizing to extend, correct, or verify knowledge, whether that knowledge would aid us in constructing the theory or in the practice of an art. So when we say research, it has something to do with the manipulation of things, concepts or symbols for the purpose of generalizing. Ito, maaari siguro, no? especially sa mga phenomenological studies or scientific studies where we do some experiment, we do some testing and varying some variables, varying some or changes on our control or and rather we have the control specimen but we have the experimental samples, no, where we have to vary and we have to make some uh, variations in the testing and compare this with the standard or we compare this with the control specimen and record whatever changes or differences in the results. So when we say research, it is an original contribution that we contribute to existing body of knowledge and we contribute something that would advance knowledge, especially in the pursuit of truth. And this is done by observation, comparison, and experiment. And in short, we can say that research is the search for knowledge through objective and systematic method of finding solution to a problem, and it is a systematized approach concerning making generalizations and formulations of certain theories. So ito pa ang sabi, no, that the term research refers to the systematic method consisting of enunciating the problem, formulating a hypothesis, collecting the facts or data, analyzing the facts, and reaching certain conclusions, either in the form of conclusion or solutions toward the concerned problem, and we make some theoretical formulations. So talagang ano siya, no, very comprehensive, very systematic, and therefore we need to carefully enunciate the problem. What is the research problem? What is the research problem that we are trying to solve? What is the research problem that we need further investigation in order to collect data and come up with certain conclusions that would help us in formulating some theories. So, what are the objectives of research? Of course, the first objective is to discover answers to questions through the application of scientific procedures. No? So, very clear that in the conduct of research, we make use of scientific procedures. And the main goal is to ferret out the truth. And we have to discover, no, those things that has not yet been discovered. And therefore, there are other reasons, no, for doing this. And these are some of the objectives on why we do research. One is for us to gain familiarity with a phenomenon or to achieve new insights into it, and that is doing studies in and exploratory researches in order to make some theoretical formulations. Second, so that's first to gain familiarity, to get to know better the problem. To get to know better the problem, then we need to get some insights. We do some exploratory studies. And second is to portray accurately. So portrayal, what do we do here? We try to characterize, no? We try to characterize, for example, studying the behavior of one individual and compare this to a group of people, whether there is a deviant behavior or whether he has a very different attitude or characteristics as compared with the control specimen. Then from here, we do some descriptive research studies. And number three is to determine the frequency on whether it occurs oftenly or not, and therefore we try to make some diagnostic research. So perhaps we can do some study, for example, on the case of people who are smoking. So we would like to study the effect of smoking to one's health, for example. And from a group of 100 individuals who are smoking, we try to get 50 people as respondents and ask them whether they have, for example, experience or they have some issues on angina or they have issues on their health, for example, they have tuberculosis, they have pneumonia or whatever that is associated with smoking. So from there, we can ask them and answer the survey. And we have to determine the frequency. Kung ilan sa kanila ang sumugot, no? Na dahil sa paninigarilyo, nagkasakit sila ng ganitong klase ng sakit. And that is to determine the frequency. Then, fourth is to test a hypothesis. So we try to determine the cause and effect, and therefore, is there a significant relationship between or among the variables when we change something? For instance, say for instance, we have to determine the influence of using too much water, for example, in or on the strength of concrete, for instance. So what will be our hypothesis? That the use of varying amount of water has no significant effect on the strength of concrete, for example. So titingnan na natin ngayon, no? Say for example, we vary the water cement ratio from 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, and zero point 0.8 and determine whether there is a significant changes on their strength. If you find that the result has no significant effect, then we can say we accept the hypothesis. However, if we find out that the result shows that there is a significant effect, then we have to conclude that we reject the hypothesis, that therefore there is a significant difference. So that is testing of the hypothesis. So very clear, no? Una, to gain familiarity, to be familiarized. And then we have to portray accurately and determine the frequency and to test the hypothesis. So, what are the reasons why we're motivated in doing research? Why people are doing research? What are the reasons? Why do we do this? One is because of the desire to get a research degree along with its consequential benefits. So it is not easy for you to finish your master's, your PhD, or whatever without successfully finishing your research. So people are doing research as a requirement for their respective degrees. Second, we do research because we desire to face the challenge in solving the unsolved problems, especially those that has or have practical uh, importance. And third is to get intellectual joy of doing some creative work. So we do this for our own satisfaction because of the the intellectual joy we gain from doing research. And there is happiness and self-satisfaction in conducting research. And the fourth reason on why we do research is for us to provide service to the society because we know that if we do this kind of research, for example, the vaccine that we need for COVID-19, then we can do something for our country, for our fellow men, and therefore we do service to the society. And five is for us to be known and be respected in the community. And alam naman natin, no? We know that if you are a famous scientist, you are respected in the scientific community, and therefore people will ask advice and they will consult you and provide answer to their queries or questions. And there are several types of research that we will be doing, and I hope that in your first activity, in your first assignment, we know you know what kind of research is being done, and you can easily identify whether the research conducted is a descriptive or an analytical research, or whether it is a basic research or it is an applied research. So, what is the difference between a descriptive and analytical research? When we do descriptive research, normally we do some surveys, we do some fact finding inquiries. And the main goal of that is, of course, to provide some description on the current state of affairs of the society, of the community, or of certain group of people. So that is descriptive. We just do some paper uh, and pencil kind of research where we make use of the survey form as an instrument in gathering data. And there are different ways on how this is being done. Of course, we have here the term ex post facto, after the fact, after you have done that kind of research. So, first, you can perhaps do a diagnostic, and after that, then you do some ex post facto research. And after the fact, sabi nilang ganun, no? That is being done in social science or business research. And here, you do not have any control on the variables. You just record whatever results obtained from the survey. So you have to deploy survey questionnaires and ask, for example, the behavior of people in buying certain commodities, for instance. So you just ask them several questions, and then after that, you have to record whatever answers or whatever answer given. And from there, you have to come up with a report and identify what happened or what is happening. So, for example, you also wanted to get to know who will be the front runner in the senatorial election or presidential election. Then here you can do some survey and you just describe what are their choices or what are the characteristics they look for the leaders that they wanted to become the president or whatever. No? So in this case, this is more of a social science research or business research. We make use of the descriptive research for scientific, for business and social science research. And here in the ex post facto research project, these are used for most descriptive studies in which the researcher always seek to measure such items such as the frequency of shopping, preference of preferences of people, and the like. So ito yung mga ganito, no, mga marketing research, no, na ginagawa, and this falls under descriptive research. Then in the ex post facto studies, this attempts to discover the causes, but we don't have any control on whatever answer given by the respondents. And these are being utilized for comparative and correlational studies. For example, you would like to compare and correlate the behavior of people from different regions in terms of their behavior or marketing studies on mga behavior on their preferences, then we can see how similar or how different the reactions would be. So whether region 1 and region 2 have a common behavior or common interest or whatever. So dito, ang tinitingnan natin ay yung kanilang mga uh, behavioral yung behavioral studies na ginagawa dito para magkaroon ng comparison at correlation. No? While in analytical research, it's totally different with the descriptive research because here we make some critical evaluation of the materials. No? And we normally uh, make use of mathematics or statistics in order to make a good analytical interpretations on the results. Then meron din tayong tinatawag na applied versus fundamental. Applied versus, pero parang ano lang naman yan, no? Pareho lang naman yan. Applied or basic or pure research is also fundamental. And the main goal of this is in advancing knowledge. No? We gather knowledge for knowledge sake, and this is more focused on natural phenomenon. Ito yung mga basic studies where we do some pure mathematics, we do some chemistry for basic studies. No? And yung pangalawa, applied research naman, ay so applied versus basic. No? Applied yung basic, rather kamali ako dito. Yung fundamental or basic, ito ay gathering knowledge for knowledge sake. No? While yung applied research is more focused on providing solutions to the problems of the society or the industry or certain organizations. No? While the fundamental or basic research is more on gathering knowledge for knowledge sake, and it's more focused on natural phenomena. No? So yun ang pagkakaiba ng dalawa. Applied versus basic research. So yung applied, ito yung sa engineering, no? More on application, more on developmental, more on experimental for the purpose of providing an answer to certain problems or solutions to certain industry problems. Okay? Nagkakaintindihan ba?
Yes, this.
Yeah. So yun yun, no? Then we also make use of research in order to identify certain issues, either social, economic, political. So ito yung ginagamit din nila sa pagano, no? Sa mga paggawa ng mga survey. Kaya nga kung gusto mong manalong presidente or bago ka tumakbong presidente, make sure na merong research na gagawin at ito ay sa pamamagitan ng pag-conduct ng survey. So we try to evaluate the result and if we have the chance of winning. No? And applied research is more focused, as I've said, in addressing certain problems, while basic research is more on knowledge generation, and that is to contribute to existing bodies of knowledge. And also, we have quantitative and qualitative. It's about yung kanilang descriptive research, yan din yung qualitative research. Yan din yung nabanggit kanina. No? Samantalang yung quantitative research, ito mostly yung rather, yung quantitative, may mga mathematical ano dito, no, measurement. Yung qualitative, it's more of um, generating knowledge through phenomenological studies, and normally sa qualitative research, more on descriptive yung interest natin doon. No? And ang mga topics na pinag-aaralan dito sa qualitative or sa descriptive ay itong mga ito, no? Why people think or do certain things. So it's more of behavioral studies, social science researches. And in the qualitative research, we are focused more on the motivation of people, their desires, and this is done through extensive or in-depth interviews. And here we ask questions pertaining to their opinion, their views, no? And their attitude, and that is for qualitative research. And we have to analyze the different factors, and therefore we do some uh, possible experimental studies with the help of a psychologist, for instance, if we wanted to know the motives and the behavior of different types of people and the reasons of why they react or act differently. No? Then we also have conceptual versus empirical. So when we talk about conceptual, it's more of an abstract idea. No? Samantalang kapag empirical, this is more on experiments, and therefore we have to do some observations. And this is data based driven. No? And here we need to get first hand informations, and kailangan natin din, no, na makapag-generate ng data para ma-prove and disprove natin yung ating mga hypothesis. So, in the empirical research, we do empirical designs or experimental designs. And therefore, we have to carefully gather some data base sa experiment, base sa ating mga observations. And some other types of research. So generally, there are qualitative and quantitative type of research. So we have applied and basic research. So basic or fundamental or pure research, yun yun. No? So I hope naintindihan nyo. No? Then we have a one-time research or longitudinal research. So one-time research, katulad ng sabi ko kanina, na kung gusto nating mapag-aralan isang grupo ng mga tao na naninigarilyo at gusto nating malaman kung sino sa kanila ang merong tuberculosis, then that is one-time research. No? Pero kung gusto nating pag-aralan ang effect ng paninigarilyo sa tao, then pag-aralan natin siya from day 1 to say day 365. Kung meron bang changes sa kanyang health, then that is longitudinal, time series. No? That is a time series kind of research. And in research, we do some field setting, we do some simulation, and in engineering, sometimes we first do the simulation through the use of computers, and kung gusto natin gumawa ng mga prototype using our 3D printing technologies, then okay lang yun. No? Kasi masyadong magastos kung gagawa ka agad ng prototype nang wala ka man lang smaller samples na pwedeng tignan kung working ba siya o hindi. So, the other type of researches are clinical studies or diagnostic, and here this is applicable to the medical field, and make some case study. This is the reason why the doctors are continues doing research, making some case studies, and making some clinical or diagnostic researches. No? Yung mga dentista, yung mga specialista. So meron silang mga iba't ibang cases. Hindi pare-pareho ang na-encounter nilang mga problema ng mga tao. And therefore, here, they do some clinical studies. And the others are doing some exploratory research, developmental research, etc. At ito ay yung katulad ng mga ginagawang research ni sino ba yung kilalang ngayon? Kilalang scientist na gumagawa ng mga ng mga ni Elon, no? Elon Musk, no? So ito yung mga ginagawa niya, more on exploratory, on how he can bring people to Mars or to other planet. And exploring some possibilities of using some techniques and technologies na pwede nating magamit. No? And the other type of researches are related to historical research. And here, when we do historical research, we make use of the documents, no? Documentary evidences. And in the historical research, ito yung mga anthropologists, mga sociologists, mga kung ano-ano, no? Base sa mga available data, base sa mga nasusulat. So dito siya nagfo-fall. Sociologists, anthropologists, mga kung ano-ano mga research ang ginagawa nila. Explorations, mga diggings, etc. And we are using research to come up with conclusions and make use as a basis for decisions, no? And therefore, it is decision-oriented and useful for making some policies, no? And yung iba naman ay operations research. Siguro na-encounter niyo ito, no? Sa sa production engineering, sa operations research. So we have optimization techniques, no? Yung simplex method na tinatawag nila. So dito yon nagfo-fall sa operations research on how we can do some optimization techniques, minimizing costs, optimizing profit, etc. So that falls under operational research. And we have different research approaches being used in order to shed light to the problems that we have to solve, no? And different approaches that we normally use is through the use of quantitative approach and qualitative approach. And in applied research, we normally make use of the two, both quantitative and qualitative. No? So meron tayong quantification in observation, and then we take note of the changes. So we make some observations and we make some qualitative interpretations. So here we have to make some inferential. So when you do an inferential, then we do some induction and deduction. We have some observation and then we have some conclusion. And that is being done through experiments, through simulation. And from here, we make conclusions on the relationship. So normally we study a certain population, and from that population, we get a sample. No? Kasi, kunyari, meron kang study, ang gusto mong pag-aralan sana ay buong Pilipinas, pero that is impractical. No? So, it's impractical. Kaya nga kahit sa mga survey, kung sino ang tatakbo o ang mananalong presidente, makikita nyo din sa mga survey, sabi doon na nag-survey lang sila ng 3,000, tapos may plus or minus na na 5% error, then na-predict na nila kaagad kung sino ang posibleng manalo. Well, that depends on how they will collect or get sample from the population, no? Kung paano magiging uh, um, ang tawag ito, realistic at reliable yung kanilang sample na kukuhanin mula sa population as a representative sample of the entire population. So they normally do survey, and the rest is done through experiments, no? And simulations. So dito merong inferential, experimental, and simulation approaches. So sa experiments, syempre, pinag-aaralan yung mga influence ng manipulation ng variables. Samantalang sa simulation, we can simulate some artificial environment. So dito, we do some natural, or we do some accelerated simulations, no? Say, for example, you simulate the environment. When you simulate the environment, you can change or vary the temperature from 5 degrees, 10 degrees to 40 degrees. So that is a simulation approach. But in, in reality, you can also do some experimental setup using this kind of simulation approach. So, titignan natin, no, yung magiging effect nito sa behavior ng ating mga samples as compared to the control specimen. So we make use of computers in order to, so dito mostly ginagamit nila ito sa mga predictive analytics, yung paggamit nila ng mga algorithms, ng mga neural networks, mga ganyan, no? So that's simulation, where you train all the data, and once that you have a trained data from a thousand numbers of data na in-input mo dun sa iyong system, then from there you can possibly get some predictions, and therefore that's through the use of simulation. Kasi kapag gagawin mo lahat yan sa experiments, magiging magastos, no? At hindi siya realistic. It can be done, but of course this will be very costly. Okay, and then we have different approaches, just like what was mentioned a while ago, that we have the qualitative approach, where we make some assessment on the attitudes, opinions, and behavior of people. And ano ba ang pinaka-objective, pinaka-significance ng research? Siyempre, na-discuss natin kanina, that is to advance knowledge, and that is through the use of a scientific-based inquiry. And makakapag-create tayo ng mga ng mga concepts and theories na pwede nating gamitin as an input for policy, pwede natin gamitin as a basis for building theories and coming up with laws in or scientific laws, no? And yun yung proseso na ginagawa. And makakatulong ito sa ating paggawa ng mga polisiya na pwedeng gamitin sa iba't ibang area, whether the field of governance, in the business sector, in the medical sector, or in any field na pwede nating gamitin ang research, and that is for purposes of making decisions, and it is necessary for, of course, for the improvement on the quality of life of people, and that would serve as a tool for the socio-economic transformation of a country. And alam natin na sa mga iba't ibang bansa, na mga mayamang bansa, yung mga developed countries, nakikita natin doon, say for example sa Amerika, sa China, ang dami-dami nilang mga inventions. At ang mga inventions na to ay galing sa research, no? At kapag meron ka lang isang invention na nagawa, pwede ka nang magtayo ng iyong bagong company, no? And alam natin na sa pag-conduct natin ng ating mga studies, sometimes the process is routinary in nature, and sometimes we need to enjoy, no, what we are doing because it is a routinary task, and therefore we have to uh, make a way, or we have to have an art in making the data collection process enjoyable. And sana, no, ay makatulong yung mga available tools natin sa ngayon, yung mga SPSS at mga iba't iba pang mga tools sa pag-analyze ng mga data, kasi kung mamanu-manuhin mo yan at ang dami mong data na nag-gather, napakahirap, no, maggawa ng ano doon, no, data analysis kasi mano-mano. So here in doing research, ano ba? Ano ba ang kahalagahan nito, no, sa paggawa ng mga ano ng economic policies? So ginagamit nila ito para sa investigation of economic structure through continual compilation of facts. So especially in the Philippines, nagkakaroon pa ng problema sa mga agricultural products. Paano ba natin ito ma-improve? Di ba, if you remember, there was a time when the Honorable Senator Cynthia Villar nagalit, pinagalitan ng Department of Agriculture dahil bakit daw sila ay masyadong ano sa research, bakit ang laki-laki ng inilalaan nilang budget para doon, no? Parang bakit ba kayo ano, no? May term siya doon na ginamit, no? Masyado kayong ano sa research. Baliw na baliw, sabi niya, sa research. So, hindi niya alam na ang research ang pinaka-basis natin, no, sa ating mga decisions, especially sa mga polisiya na ini-implement natin. Dapat science, scientific based, no, hindi yung base lang sa ating pakiramdam, base sa ating hula, base sa ating kutob, kundi ito ay base sa ating socio-economic investigations, and we try to diagnose what exactly the problem is, getting to know better, no, the issues at hand, what are the causes and what are the effects. So ganun din sa research, we must identify the cause in order for us to address the problem, because if you just treat the effect and you do not exactly get to know the root cause of the problem, then it's just a band-aid solution. Therefore, wala rin. Hindi mo talaga na-address yung problema. Parang sa ano rin yan, no? Sa mga doktor. The reason why we are undergoing several laboratory testing, para malaman ng doktor na ito ay hindi masyadong malala at ito ay ano lang, no? Benign. Kaya complete diagnosis ang ginagawa nila para magkaroon din sila ng tamang prognosis. Meron silang tamang recommendation, analysis on the problem. And that, therefore, that can be used for future development of, say, for example, our economy or kung saan man siya gagamitin. And therefore, this requires proper planning. So kanina nabanggit yung operations research, market research. So ito yung mga application ng mga mathematical tools, no, and techniques, especially when we minimize cost and maximize profit. And sandali lang ha, sandali. Hello.
ba yung performance, yun talagang fail to reject, hindi naman talaga nag-improve. No? So pwede nating gamitan yung mga ganun po.
Dapat talaga from now on dapat talaga statistically proven yung ating significant differences na hindi lang dun
may
sa
significant difference.
average of say 3 samples kung maaari ay dapat mas marami, mas maganda. And meron tayong mga F-test na ginagawa or T-test na yung katulad sinabi kanina saka yung Z-test. Kasi kapag more than 30 samples ang you can use the Z-test. Kapag yung sa T-test naman, it's less than 30 samples.
Mga less than, opo.
So doon siya nagkakaiba. Pero dapat talaga mas maganda kung sa ating mga experiments ay meron tayong scientific sa engineering. Dapat maging practice natin 'yon para scientifically ay proven yung ating mga hypothesis. There is a significant and acceptable. Oo.
Opo. Thank you po, sir.
That's right. So sa aking mga estudyante sa undergrad, may mga may mga statistical analysis other than those kasi kinukumpara natin kung may significant difference between and among the variables.
Opo.
So kaya kailangan natin yung statistics kung significant ba yung kanilang mga differences in terms of performance, in terms of effectiveness. So mahalaga 'yon. Yeah. So siguro that's your observation, but in my class, I usually ask them to make use of statistical tools para mai-explain yung correlation ng kanilang mga differences. Kung mataas ba or mababa ba. And mas maganda kung tayo ay maging acquainted and familiar with the different tools in statistics.
Okay, sir. Thank you po.
Mas mas parang scientific yung niya approach, di ba?
Opo.
Okay, sige. Ross, any question?
Doc, good afternoon po. Doc, mayroon akong question regarding sa sa quantitative at saka dun sa qualitative. Paano ba natin, Doc, na lalaman kung ang research is quali at saka dun sa quantitative? Kasi actually, Doc, dun sa practical research to ng estudyante namin sa senior high school, more on quali sila. Pero actually, pwede rin pong quanti. Kaya lang, hindi ko lang kasi ma-determine actually. Gusto ko rin kasi malaman talaga kung ano yung pinaka-main difference ng dalawang research na yun.
Yung mga qualitative researches, katulad ng binanggit kanina, mga studies na more on behavioral studies, marketing studies, mga ganyan. So where we make some qualification on the behavior of the people. So yung quantitative sometimes ay more on quantitative using statistical and mathematical tools. So
bali gumagamit pa talaga siya ng survey talaga dun sa quantitative talaga. More on
sa quantitative ang quantitative na ay gumagamit siya ng survey pero gumagamit siya ng kunyari mga Likert scale kunyari. Or mga ganun.
Okay, sige.
So yung naman, yung iba naman ay sa qualitative maaring ang nila ay ranking ganyan.
Okay. Sige po. Salamat po, Doc.
Parang din although merong quantitative aspect pero anong meaning nung quantitative na yun?
Okay po. Sige po.
Pero in some cases siya a combination actually kuminsan. Pero yung mga qualitative research parang ganito. Qualitative research, eto kunwari ay gusto nating malaman kung ano ang dahilan ng mga kabataan na maagang nag-aasawa, for example. So more on more on interview. Qualitative 'yon, no? Yung ano pa bang quantitative? Gusto kong mapag-aralan yung behavior ng tao, papadrawingin ko siya. Qualitative 'yon.
Okay po.
Parang mo sa akin, no? Ano ba ang sa tingin mo sa pananaw mo sa pamamagitan ng ng drawing, ipakita mo sa akin. Tapos kunyari, yung ding paggamit ng mga kulay, qualitative din 'yon, no? Gusto kong interpret yung kaniyang kung galit sa mundo or so qualitative yon.
Okay po. Sige po.
So these
Salamat po,
are
Doc.
qualitative approaches, no? These are more on phenomenological studies where we do some interview process, some observation, kung ano man yung gagawin natin. Say for example, pakikinig ng music. Hindi naman natin kino-quantify, no? Alin sa mga ano natin. Say for example, yung mga manok natin, for example, para mas ano sila, mangitlog ng ano, ng mas marami. And then we try to make use of music para sa kanila at magiging mas kampante sila, ganyan. So, observations, mga ganon yung ginagawa natin, no? Either drawings, pictures, anong interpretation nila doon sa mga ano. Okay? So,
Okay po, Doc.
that
Salamat
is
po, Doc.
qualitative, no? Pakitaan mo siya ng picture, ano ang kanyang pananaw dito, then record the observation. Then, yeah, so that's more on ang approach ay interview method, drawing, and then picture or kung ano man. Okay?
Okay po, Doc. Thank you po, Doc.
Okay. Sige. What else? Yes, ano ba? Sino yung nag-raise ng hand? Sige, you can ask your question. Ano pa? Ano pang yes, Neil.
Hello, Doc. Good afternoon po.
Good afternoon.
Bali, sir, kanina po nabanggit po ninyo no, na kadalasan po or majority ng research na ginagawa ng people from engineering, regardless po no, kung MEP or MS, would be applied. If ever po kaya, sir, tawag dito, meron po ba kayong samples or advice na mabibigay po sa amin as to, kumbaga, although yung assignment po natin no, is yung mga trends po no, dun sa mismong research or mga topics. Pero,
yes,
for example, sir, yung mga yung mga previous thesis or research po na ginagawa ng mga MEP tsaka MS courses, meron po pa kayong parang criteria na hinahanap as to what topics are going to be parang i-allow ni TUP or ano po, or parang kapag halimbawa hindi kami magde-deviate, for example, engineering course pero yung tawag dito yung research namin would be may hint ng education or educational ano po. So parang ganun, sir, kumbaga parang looking for an idea lang po no as to what topics po yung kadalasan pong ina-approve or parang ini-encourage po ni TUP para po dun sa mga MS saka MEP students po.
Yung mga MEP students normally kung ano yung mga current industry problems na kailangan para siyang ano nga yung isang klase ng research na yung ginagawa sa undergrad kapalit ng thesis.
Feasibility set?
Hindi.
Project.
Hindi.
Project lang, sir.
Hindi project.
Project
Capstone.
research.
Parang
Capstone po,
capstone.
sir.
Parang capstone project.
Capstone.
No? Yung capstone project is a kind of research na applied. And yun, kadalasan yun ang para sa Masters of Engineering na kung ano yung problema sa industry, anong industry doon sa kung saan mas related yung kanyang field, yun ang gagawa niya ng solution, no? For example, siguro ang issue niya ay about energy. So how can we reduce energy energy costs? So, yun, gagawa ng study ng taga-MEP. For example, ang sa naman ay sa civil engineering. Say for example is problem on flooding for instance. Ano ang innovative solution niya para doon sa flooding na practical or construction methodology or whatever that is applied in nature. So, yun yung kadalasan sa MEP. Saan ba sila nagkakaroon ng difference? So, kadalasan yung iba, ang hinahanap nila ay mga either developmental, product development, prototyping, then ang ano kasi nila ay hindi lang siya conceptual, no? Hindi lang conceptual, but at the same time, you have the theoretical and actual data. Parang ganon. So, yung mga related naman sa education, kung minsan kasi ay hindi masyado siyang tinatanggap pagdating dito sa engineering kasi nga ang understanding ay more on industry related problems ang ano no ang binibigyan ng katugunan or kung meron ka man sa engineering education parang hindi pa siya gano'n no parang wala pa akong nakitang paper na more on engineering education related. Especially, ano bang field ka? Civil ka ba?
Computer, sir.
Oh, kapag ikaw naman ay computer engineering, for instance, so yung mga Internet of Things siguro ang ano niya, kalimitan, no? Either software or hardware development. Now, kung ang iniisip mo naman ay parang yung mga module, parang hindi siya ganun eh. Depende na lang kung Master of Engineering program siguro. Kung ano yung ano niya, mga ginagamit nilang mga ano sa engineering. But that's also, basta't merong innovation, no? May technological innovation.
Maraming salamat po, sir.
Okay, you're welcome. What else? What are the questions do you have para ma-address natin? Para bago tayo mag-move on and we'll have the presentation in a short while, no? Okay, so sige, continue natin. So, motivational research. Ito yung mga customer market behavior that is being used in industry, no? And what else? So, yeah. And yeah, ito yung sa marketing research. Ito sa mga social scientists where they study the different social behavior, social problems, say alcoholism, mga ganyan. Ano yung mga issues related to teenage, young, yung pregnancy among teens, for example, yung pagiging, ano pa ba, alcoholic, drug addict, yung mga ano sa society, no? Mga issues sa society about poverty. So ito yung mga issues na more on social and these are more on descriptive, more on qualitative. So dito ang isang researcher ay nagsusulat ng lahat ng mga ginagawang interview, mga documentaries din, no? Mga ganyan. Kung nakita niyo yung mga pinapalabas nila dati sa Channel 2, sa Channel 7, where they do some documentaries, these are example of qualitative research, no? Okay?